come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
The plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Trying to reconcile how Benghazi was not safe enough for the Federal Bureau of Investigation to go, but it was safe enough to leave a below-spec facility for our diplomats to stay in.
Which was allowed by the State Department because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead.
Of course you did.
The department did not automatically save all departmental email until February of this year. Only a tiny fraction of its emails were saved. And that's under the assumption that she exclusively used State Department emails. State Department email. State Department email.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And with that, I'd have to agree. Government is the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Kelly's going to take care of you tonight. She's your bartender tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the smoking lamp is in fact lighted. We don't water our drinks here, just like we don't water our conversation, our politics, our religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all. Here at the saloon, nothing is sacred. The only thing we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, on the Bloviating Zeppelin. Well, it looks like we have something to talk about in terms of the Trump inauguration. Isn't that amazing? We have also tonight perhaps some unsaid things about Hillary Rodham Clinton. We have first-day fake news. We have second-day fake news. We have third-day fake news. We have Obama's parting lie. And if we have some time, we're going to talk about who left us in the year 2016. First couple of things. Just off the top of my head, we'll talk about them a little bit later. Did you happen to see that Trump decided that he's going to keep James Comey? Now isn't that an interesting decision? I said I knew that like a good adult, because that's what I am, that I knew that he was going to do some things that I didn't quite care for. And I'll get into the whole Comey thing a little bit later. And there we go. He's done something that I don't particularly care for. On the other hand, he's the president, and I'm just a fat little guy sitting in a small room with a blue light that says, on the air. Then also, something very interesting today. I see Nikki Haley got confirmed as ambassador to the UN. She zipped right through. That was absolutely no problem whatsoever. It looks like Ben Carson today got approved for housing and urban development. And then something that I find very interesting. A gentleman that you've likely never heard of named Ajit Pai. However, I suspect that he's a very important kind of person because he just got appointed FCC chair by Donald Trump. And he might have something to say about ICANN. I can't, but he can. And also, he's not a big guy when it comes to net neutrality. That's also a very interesting thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, being as how this is the Mark I Model 1 show of the Berserk Bobcat Ballroom, I'm going to try to take a phone call at the bottom of the hour after the break, and I'm omitting this up front. I'm a techno-Luddite. This should come as no shock to anyone. But I'm going to see if perhaps we can take a phone call from Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, at the bottom of the hour, and see if we can speak to Dave through Skype. We tried it before, about 10 or 15 minutes before I went live, and let's just say things did not go what you would call swimmingly. But in any event, we'll see if we can get a hold of Dave at the bottom of the hour. And eventually what I'd like to do, heck, I may as well tell you this up front, is eventually I'd like to have all the SHR media folks on, and I'd like to talk to them in order to sort of cross-promote things, if you will. And I spoke to Dave, and he was amenable. If I can't make it work tonight because of certain issues, all involving myself, then perhaps we'll make it next Tuesday. But first, the inaugural. Can you, could you, have you ever seen people go off, just totally off their nuts, when a person was installed as president? I'm sure you've likely seen the video. Tip to people who take videos with their damn phones. The vertical format, that's not working for me. If you're going to take a damn video, turn it to the side. That's called horizontally, because that's how people are used to seeing video. So, you bleeding morons that take all these videos, stop with the vertical stuff, because it doesn't capture nearly as much information. That said, that was a wonderful video, and if I had it queued up, I'd play it, but I don't, so I won't. But if you haven't seen it, a particular individual is on an airplane, and he's going to Washington. He has what it looks like a window seat. And next to him is an older lady with short hair, and apparently she got all in his grill because he said he was going to D.C. for the inauguration shock upon shocks. She's a massive leftist and begins to berate him rather loudly in the airplane, luckily before they take off, and her poor husband. Boy, do I feel sorry for that guy. If you've seen the video, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's 3 seats. He's on the window seat. The husband is on the aisle. She's in the middle. She's saying all these crazy off-the-wall stuff. And it got to the point where a flight attendant came up and had a word with her, and she said, "Are you going to stop?" essentially. And she said, "No, I'm going to keep on going." And a few minutes later, she was told that she was going to get up, and a husband, who still hadn't said one word, and never did in the video, he got up, she got up, then the next thing you see is a big guy, and it says on the back, "Police." And they're escorting them off the plane, and even though the plane was going from Seattle, which is leftist central on the left coast, going all the way over to D.C. to I don't know, go to the inauguration or whatever you do when you get off the airplane individually, Everyone on board the plane applauded when they left. That's called a clue. That's called Democrats. It's not working. It just, every leftist has come unhinged. Oh, and later, that reminds me, speaking of that, you are so going to love this. There's a particular individual who's running for DNC chair. And apparently she's running against Keith Ellison. And it's one of these things where they're so perfect. Either one of them would be the absolute ruination of the DNC, to which I reply, straight on, keep it up. I love the way this is going. You know, if I could, I'd talk to Ken McClinton, the exceptional conservative. I was on a show last night, and I sort of grilled Ken a little bit about what D.C. was like, because he was out there. He was covering all the things that were going on. And I would love to have him on the air right now and just have an extended conversation with him about what is going on in D.C. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think all of that stuff is still occurring, still going on right now. Unfortunately, I just don't know. But first, let's start at the start. The Donald Trump inauguration. Well, first, all right, let me back up. It's time to be the gentleman. I forgot my manners, my appy polylogies, for those of you who happen to have seen Clockwork Orange. Number one, thank you for listening last week, last Tuesday, basically, as Dave Milner pointed out. That was show 0. That was sort of the intro show to what was going on, a little bit of my background. And the reason it took me 2 hours to do it is that's what I'm allotted. And I'm going to have to find sort of an ebb and flow of the show. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on me so you have an idea where I come from, what I did, where I'm going, and then that way you have a better idea as to whether you want to listen to me or not. And so, number one, thanks for listening to that show. Thanks for listening to it live, and thanks for listening to it in podcast. Number two, thanks to SHR Media, conservative media, done right. Thanks to Sean, and thanks to Clint, Sackheads Sean and Clint. I contacted them last year. Now, that sounds so bizarre to say. Last year. I contacted them last year. And Sean and I sat down at a Starbucks. There's a bit of irony coming. And so we chatted, and I told him, gave him my CV, so to speak, and I said, sometime I really would be interested in doing my own show. And that's when I sort of got invited onto the Sackheads radio show. And that's when I began sitting down in the third seat over there, and they were kind enough to let me on. So today, truly, is a massive thank you to Sean and Clint from SHR Media, because if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't have given me the opportunity. And my hat, if I had one, and if it were shoved under my headphones right now, I'd take off my hat and salute you. So thank you, gentlemen, for giving me the opportunity to do that. The other thing is, thank you for allowing me to get to know a lot of people out there. Sorry I'm not on chat. I've got a lot. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to try to make this work technologically as if you were listening to a radio show that had actual cuts in it and people speaking and whatnot. So because I am, in fact, the Techno-Luddite, I have a laptop over here that's occupied with all of the effects and whatnot. I have the laptop working Spreaker, and then I've got something else so I can monitor a lot of stuff. I haven't quite figured out how to do all of that. Run the board, the mic, and chat with you on chat. So, sadly, at least for this show, until I figure out my arse from a hole in the ground, I'm not looking at chat. So chat away. Call me all sorts of mean, nasty names. Don't think I won't go back and look at it either. So just for right now, I'm not in chat. But thank you for listening to me live. Thank you for all the people that are in chat right now. I wish I could be with you. And thank you to all the people that are listening to me in podcast. It's an honor to be on SHR Media. It's an honor to be on High Plains Pundit Media. And anyone else who happens to come along, my hat is likewise tipped to you. So, all right, I wasn't quite such a blithering idiot. I did remember to say my thanks. And again, on to did you ever, ever, in a million years, see this coming? I did not, in any way, shape, or form. Well, Donald Trump, he of the dead orange cat sitting on the top of his pate, is now the 45th president of the United States. I couldn't have envisioned this whatsoever. Because people were saying back then that on the right side, it was sort of preordained that Jeb Bush was going to waltz on in and be the number one guy. And then it turned out that he had a lot of competitors, and a lot of competitors that I sure as hell never saw coming in any way. My God, people that they came... if I'm not mistaken, there were 16 people on the right, on the GOP side, and one by one, they fell off to the side. And then it was also in terms of an ordination, or a coronation, I should say. Hillary Clinton was it. She was going to be the one, capital T, capital O. So, this sounds weird to say. Back in 2015, which technically is 2 years ago, all those candidates were kind of slinging mud and vying for alignment. And I can remember that back in 2015. I used to listen to the Hugh Hewitt show a lot. And the people that listen to the Hugh Hewitt show, and you can go to Hugh's chat room, and the people that were in chat are called tribbles. Well, every year there was, up until 2015, or last year rather, there's what they called a Tribble Fest. And Hugh would show up at Disneyland with Dwayne Patterson, the producer of the Hugh Hewitt show, and Hugh would be live on the air for one particular day, and all the tribbles would show up, and we'd talk to Dave, we'd talk to Dwayne, we'd talk to Hugh, and the people that were devotees of the Hugh Hewitt show were called tribbles. One particular night after that, we all sat down. There were probably 20 or 30 of us who'd all come from all places all across the United States to sit down that night at the Buca di Beppo in Garden Grove. I like Buca di Beppo, never been to Garden Grove myself. And then we, one by one, we said, okay, who is it that we support? I'll be honest, I was for Ted Cruz. It was discovered that there wasn't one person in there, because we took a poll and you had to talk about why it was that you were supporting a candidate. And not one individual was going to vote for Donald Trump. We thought that was prescient. It couldn't have been further from the truth. So, one by one, all the candidates fell out. And it was like this increasingly perplexing election that became so convoluted and Byzantine by the week. It became clear that Donald Trump was gaining some serious traction on the GOP side, which is an issue unto itself. Donald Trump, a conservative, a Republican. Well, I insisted he's no conservative. I think that then, and I still believe it now. But the deeper into the election process, the more bizarre things got. As the Trump campaign grew more powerful, the American media maggots, that's a BZ convention, that's what I call the mainstream media, the American media maggots, for what I consider to be obvious reasons, they tried to destroy him in any and every way imaginable that they could. And the more they tried to sink him, the stronger he got. His story started to resonate with more and more people. Both parties and the American media maggots began to realize that Donald Trump was a force that just he could not be stopped. So, establishment politicians, I have other terms, but I'll just be kind and say, establishment politicians on both sides of the aisle, they both fell by the wayside in an attempt to destroy him, to completely and utterly destroy him. Republicans tried to destroy Donald Trump. Now let's stop right here. Ask yourself, all right, were you a Donald Trump supporter? Were you a Donald Trump supporter early, midpoint, or later on, or just the damn second you happened to walk into the booth on November 8th? Because as it began to progress and the entire election process evolved, as I began to discuss the situation with more people, I discovered that battle lines, clear battle lines, were being drawn. And I can tell you unequivocally, there were 4 people who used to be acquaintances of mine who are no longer acquaintances because I determined, semi-late in the affair, that I was, in fact, going to vote for Donald Trump. So everyone began to realize that he just can't be stopped. So the more it was like Sisyphus pushing a rock up the hill, and then the rock rolled back on the people that decided they weren't going to support Donald Trump. The more they pushed, the stronger he became. And so the American media maggots and the politicians, they both began to be more enraged when every shot that they fired at him ricocheted right off. He couldn't be assailed. He couldn't be stopped. And you could see the sweat start to pop out on their foreheads. So the more pressure that was applied to him, the more they tried to smear him, the more popular he became. And so, yeah, I had to admire him for this. Frankly, he didn't care. He absolutely didn't care. He owed nothing to the American media maggots. He owed nothing to any D.C. politician. He owed nothing to the RNC. He owed nothing to the Democrats. He certainly owed nothing to the Republicans, nothing to any major corporate interests. He couldn't be threatened. He couldn't be manipulated. He couldn't be pressured. And he didn't care at all about being politically correct. And the more that became evident, well, it was pretty evident from the get-go, again, the more his popularity swelled. Yeah, okay, given. That's obvious. Said it a number of times. Trump was not my guy. And yes, he said and is saying and will say stupid things. And yeah, there's still what I call the dead orange cat effect on top of his head. But here's the deal. Said it before, say it again. He isn't Hillary Clinton. He's not Bernie Sanders. And I actually do believe that he wants the U.S. to gain strength, become a respected nation again, to solidify its sovereignty. I think he truly does honor the American military and law enforcement. And I think his actions prove it. I also admit the more Trump was assaulted on all sorts of levels, the more I came to be viscerally at the gut level, to resent the forces that were arrayed against him in the form of what I consider to be the clear collusion between the Hillary Clinton campaign, the American media maggots, their motivations, their immorality were revealed in all those emails that WikiLeaks had. That's another issue entirely. I'm just rolling to let you know basically how these things are coming. Yeah, you could say that Trump is a populist, but I actually think it's a lot more than that. I think he's mostly a pragmatist. He doesn't much care for political parties, and I think that's very much true. He is, in fact, the quintessential equal opportunity offender. So all of these things, all of this slime was thrown on a tree. But the American media maggots and the Democrats and the Republicans began to realize that when you do that, when you're throwing it at him, it's like trying to nail that Jell-O to the tree. It just wasn't working for them. So we went to recounts on behalf of Jill Stein. So it was the face of Jill Stein that we saw on the media all the time, when in fact she was doing the devil's work for Hillary Rodham Clinton to see what she could do. She wanted to force a recount. Fail. Then James Comey stepped into the mix. James Comey, in my estimation, made a terrible, terrible, lawful abrogation, a terrible mistake when he came to his conclusion, when he gave a wonderful argument as to why she should be indicted, and then at the very last second pulled the proverbial football away like Lucy did to Linus, and then said, well, no, we're not going to do it. Okay, James Comey, fail. And despite misogynistic women, yes, there were leftist females who said that Hillary Rodham Clinton didn't get elected because of women that were misogynist. Fail. Despite the electrical, that's semi-Freudian, not quite as much as I would care, when the Electoral College, he got 306. Fail. And despite the Russians, do we have things to say about that? But, fail. Donald Trump is now the 45th President of the United States. And so he had his speech. And I'll tell you what, when I come back, if we're going to see if we can talk to Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy, UBG, who actually, I don't know if I should tell you this, but he's rather pleasant, actually. If we can get him on the teleolophone, we're going to talk to him about any number of things, because I'd like to introduce everyone to him, and I'd like to have him on the show, just as I'd like to have all the SHR media people on the show, just to get to know them better. I've met a lot of people. I met a lot of folks at Freedom Fest last year in Las Vegas, and it looks like, last year at Freedom Fest, obviously I already knew Sean and Clint, and that's when I met Ken McClinton. That was a wonderful thing. Ken is an absolutely sterling individual. And I met Dr. Michael Jones, Dr. Jones, I presume, the underground professor. And he likewise is a wonderful guy. And so I'm going to be going to Freedom Fest again this year. And I think the Sackheads crew is going to be going again this year. And I think it's in Las Vegas again, except it's not at Planet Hollywood. It's someplace else. So I am very much looking forward to going back and encountering Freedom Fest. So we're going to break, and then we'll be right back. With luck, crossed fingers, crossed phalanges, crossed eyes, we'll be speaking to Dave Milner. Come back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying capitalist, stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America. One diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the bloviating Zeppelin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Announcer Guy. Appreciate it. You are listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, conservative media done right. Now I think, Dave Milner on the phone. However, I'm not hearing him. Let's ask. Dave, are you there? Do you happen to be there? I've tried all manner of machinations in order to acquire Dave, and we're not going to be able to do that with Dave. Because, quite frankly, maybe he's hearing me, but unfortunately, I'm not hearing him. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to come back, and we're going to have to reschedule that for next week with Dave. And what we're going to do now is I'd like to chat just a bit about this and see how this goes.
Chief Justice Roberts, President Carter, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, fellow Americans, and people of the world, thank you. We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships, but we will get the job done. Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. And we are grateful to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama for their gracious aid throughout this transition. They have been magnificent. Thank you. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital.
Wait, just wait until you hear this. This is glorious, one of my absolute favorite parts.
Has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again.
That was absolutely classic. 2017 is the day that the people take things back. And I would have to completely 100% agree. That is an absolutely stellar thing that he was saying.
The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Everyone is listening to you now. You came by the tens of millions to become part of a historic movement, the likes of which the world has never seen before. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. Americans want great schools for their children, safe neighborhoods for their families, and good jobs for themselves. These are just and reasonable demands of righteous people and a righteous public. But for too many of our citizens, a different reality exists. Mothers and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities, rusted out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation, an education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of all knowledge. And the crime, and the gangs, and the drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
Now, that's one thing that a lot of people on the left disagreed with when he said this carnage stops right here and stops right now. A lot of people took offense to that, and a lot of folks thought that it was just way, well, too dark and too offensive. We'll talk about that in just a moment.
We are one nation, and their pain is our pain. Their dreams are our dreams, and their success will be our success. We share one heart, one home, and one glorious destiny. The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans. For many decades, we've enriched foreign industry at the expense of American industry.
We've sacrificed America for other people's industries. That was a slap to the Gesicht of all sorts of people, particularly those not standing too terribly far away from him.
Subsidize the armies of other countries.
Subsidize the armies of another country. Is he talking about NATO, perhaps?
While allowing for the very sad depletion of our military. We've defended other nations' borders while refusing to defend our own.
As an aside, yes. We defend other people's borders when we don't even defend ourselves. Defend our own southern border. Absolutely beyond human ken.
And spent trillions and trillions of dollars overseas while America's infrastructure has fallen into disrepair and decay. We've made other countries rich while the wealth, strength, and confidence of our country has dissipated over the horizon. One by one, the factories shuttered and left our shores, with not even a thought about the millions and millions of American workers that were left behind. The wealth of our middle class has been ripped from their homes and then redistributed all across the world.
Do you think that was purposeful? Do you think Mr. Barack Hussein Obama had anything to do with that? Do you think it was his goal to redistribute whatever wealth existed in the United States of America? Continue, Donald.
But that is the past. And now we are looking only to the future. We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
Stop right there. America first. Do you know how many people took umbrage to that particular statement? America first. We'll get back to that. Now, to you, to me, to anybody else who's a right-thinking individual, and I don't mean leans to the right, I mean a proper thinking individual, can you possibly tell me what in the hell could be wrong with saying America needs to be first?
America first. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. Protection will lead to great prosperity and strength. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
Stop. Can't do it. Can't be proven. Sorry, Mr. Trump, calling you on that one. That's not going to happen. You've already let me down. But I'm going to give you a chance. Let's continue.
America will start winning again, winning like never before. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will build new roads and highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation.
Great idea. That's an excellent idea, one that's entirely overdue. Here in California, you can't build a damn thing. We tried building Auburn Dam. You want to know why California is in a drought, for example? For those of you who don't live in California, California can fall into the sea. If you live in California or somehow affected by California, and the rest of the nation is pretty much affected by California, as leftist as it is, the reason California is in a drought is because it doesn't build any infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I mean the Auburn Dam, all sorts of dams and reservoirs. Jerry Brown, leftist that he is, was in control in the mid-'70s as governor the first time around when he had hair in the state of California. It was he that created the drought that all the people are encountering now, and if it wasn't for God having something to do with dropping some wet stuff on us down here in the flats and up where I live, snow up in the mountains, we'd still be resoundingly screwed.
We will get our people off of welfare and back to work, rebuilding our country with American hands and American labor. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American. We will seek friendship and goodwill with the nations of the world, but we do so with the understanding that it is the right of all nations to put their own interests first.
He's leading up to that. He's leading up to that. Those terrible two words, America first.
We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine.
Ooh, some of the Republicans on the right are thinking, is this kind of a guy? Is he an isolationist? Is he going to get us out? Is he not going to commit us? Oh, I'm quaking on my knees right now. This doesn't sound good.
For everyone to follow. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Let me shout. We actually have a president who said Islamic terrorism. Oh, my God. The left at this point, I'm sure they pooped their drawers. Luckily, they must have been wearing diapers, perhaps some Depends, but clearly there was pants-shitting hysteria going on right there.
Which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
Nice try, but again, Donald, that's not going to happen. I appreciate the thought. Nice try. No. But keep that thought.
At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice.
Patriotism, the P word, leftists right now are thinking, oh my God, this guy's, it's nothing but a jingoistic speech.
The Bible tells us.
Oh, the Bible. Wait. That can't be in there. That can't be in. The presidents can't say that.
How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable.
Now, that part is absolutely correct. Let me tell you one thing. For the people that are in chat, that are people that are listening live, that are going to be listening to the podcast, A, thank you for doing so, and B, were you around during the Reagan era? Because I was. And I can tell you unequivocally, I never felt as good about my country and my nation as I did when Ronald Wilson Reagan would make a speech. Quite frankly, up until then, I had been voting Democrat all along. I told you the story. I was a friggin' leftist from the 60s and the 70s. I worked for the McGovern campaign, handing out all sorts of leftist shite. And it wasn't until Reagan and his starting to run from 1980 on until he left his 2 terms, only then when I began to listen exactly to what Ronald Wilson Reagan was saying, only then did I actually begin to listen to what was going on, and my eyes opened, and also concurrently, I got a really good job. A really good job that I absolutely loved, and I was invested. I was invested in America, I was invested in property, and I had a lot to lose, and he spoke to me.
There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God.
Stop the G word. Can't be saying it.
Finally, we must think big and dream even bigger. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it.
At that point, he may as well have turned around to everyone behind him, everyone to his left, everyone to his right, and pointed a finger at every one of those empty suits and suitesses. Because that's exactly who he's been talking about. He's not a politician, he's a businessman. And I know he's going to make some serious mistakes. He's already doing it. But you have to view Donald Trump in terms of what he says and then what he does. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But what he did twice now in that speech, he may as well have gone up to all of those people, both sides of the aisle, it doesn't damn make a bit of difference, and slapped each one of them upside the head.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots.
Did you ever hear anything come out like that come out of the mouth of Barack Hussein Obama, who, him specifically, all his sycophants and his little minions running around, all they did is play division and identity politics, period.
We all enjoy the same glorious freedoms, and we all salute the same great American flag. And whether a child is born in the urban sprawl of Detroit or the windswept plains of Nebraska, they look up at the same night sky, they fill their heart with the same dreams, and they are infused with the breath of life by the same almighty Creator. So to all Americans in every city, near and far, small and large, from mountain to mountain, from ocean to ocean, hear these words: you will never be ignored again.
That's an attempt at unity, ladies and gentlemen, something that Barack Hussein Obama was not very good at.
Your voice, your hopes, and your dreams will define our American destiny. And your courage and goodness and love will forever guide us along the way. Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you. God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And tell you what, we'll be right back after this, if you will.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reverb Common Sense Show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I do in fact say welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze isn't. Sometime later, I'll tell you about my KC-135 Kettle One refueling team and how they keep me fueled here and abroad, up in my Sierra Nevada area and down in the flats, just adjacent the belly of the beast here in Sacramento, Fornicalia, because that's what this state does. Now, I was going to get back onto the topic of Donald Trump and his Jesus Christ, his inauguration. But before I do that, I almost forgot about this one thing. And I was contemplating it, downing just a bit of potato water the other day, and I thought, sometimes the things that are not said, things that are unsaid, and things that are undone, are every bit as important, or even more important, perhaps, than things that are said. And I think Obama's last day in office was a classic case in point. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, What is it that you did not hear from Obama on his last day? Because you didn't hear it any of the other days after his last press conference, then his last press conference, then his 43rd from the end press conference, and his 23rd from the end press conference, blah, blah, blah. On his last day, I was waiting to see if I was going to hear it, see it on TV, read it in print. So what did he not say? What did you not hear Barack Obama say that I think is incredibly important? Think about that for a second. Here's what you didn't hear or read. You didn't hear this from Barack Obama. Did you hear of a presidential pardon for Hillary Clinton? Let that rattle around in your wheelhouse a little bit. So 2 immediate questions came to my mind. Is this Mr. Obama's final slap to the Clintons? And will that issue appear on the radar screen of Jeff Sessions? I was expecting it to occur. I really did think, because if you do not know, had Barack Hussein Obama decided that he was going to pardon Hillary, there really wasn't anything that could be done to stop it. Even though, if not convicted, you can still, a presidential pardon can still keep her from prosecution. And you might be saying, well, wait, BZ, wait. That's never happened before. Don't you have to be indicted, or don't you have to be convicted of a crime like all the other thousands of criminals that he freed, including drug dealers and terrorists who have come back to hurt and assail the United States of America once again? Don't you have to be convicted or indicted to receive a presidential pardon? And the answer is no, you don't. The classic case in point is the Gerald Ford pardon of Richard Nixon, who resigned but was not impeached. So the speech was, essentially, it was an uppercut right to the bottom of the chin of Barack Obama, George Bush, who also was sitting a few feet away, the D.C. establishment, and the old guard, the establishment, on both sides of the aisle. Trump hit him right on the jaw, publicly, as they stood right next to him. In that aspect, I have to say, that was absolutely glorious. Then, if you recall, there were 67 Democrat congressmen and women who stayed home like the little petulant children that they were. One Democrat, I noted, took those individuals to task in a letter that he wrote. And the letter was by Tom Schuber. The letter was by Dick Durbin. And it was very interesting. It was covered by NBCChicago.com under the headline of the article, Why I'm Attending the Inauguration of Donald Trump's Inauguration. Durbin explains the decision to attend. My presence is an acknowledgement that once again America has achieved what so many nations have failed to do, peacefully transition to new leadership. Durbin said that in a release. So Senator Dick Durbin, Thursday, last week, said while he disagrees with President-elect Donald Trump on many, many issues, unlike many of his colleagues, he's going to be standing by Trump's side as he's sworn in to serve as the 45th President of the United States. In a statement explaining his decision, a note titled, Why I'm Attending the Inauguration of Donald Trump, Durbin stated that he stood as Ronald Reagan was sworn in for his second term. He stood there as George W. Bush was sworn in for his second inauguration, and as Barack Obama was for both of his terms. He said, as President Trump lifts his hand from the Bible, I will then accept my constitutional responsibility to support him when he's right and oppose him with every fiber of my being when he's wrong. And that is the way, ladies and gentlemen, that a person who's called a class act, that's how they handle the situation professionally. Not like little kids. So the inauguration went on, and the rioters blocks away. They were completely unable. This was wonderful. They were completely unable to interfere with the proceedings, unlike what they were saying. They were not able to make good on their taunting threats, and over 200 arrests were made when a number of the rioters broke windows and set a vehicle on fire. Stop. It was revealed today, if you remember seeing the riots that occurred there in D.C., I'm sure you remember seeing a long vehicle, a long black vehicle that was set on fire. And the petulant little leftists and anarchists decided that that vehicle represents the evil in the world, the overpaid, the overweened people on the right, clearly the oil gluttons, the corporatists. Do you know who that car belonged to? I can't remember his last name, but if his first name was Mohammed. He has one employee, himself. By burning that car, you completely eliminated that business. That man made a business driving that automobile. He said today that if his insurance won't pay, he's going to have to spend $100,000, somehow find it, to bring that automobile back or another one similar to it. That's how he made his money. So the anarchists in D.C. were able to take an individual that they would normally consider one of the downtrodden, and they completely obliterated his business. My thanks, anyway, to all the military and law enforcement personnel who worked and planned so effectively to keep that inauguration safe. They kept it punctual. They kept it professional. And it was stately, I have to say. And so the very microsecond that President Trump's inaugural, his words escaped, the American media maggots weighed in, and they began all the hit pieces, the talking heads, publishing, etc. And the spittle was literally flying. From Fox News, there was an article that said, the headline, MSNBC, ABC hosts deem Trump inaugural address as militant and anti-Semitic. Are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding. Immediately following President Donald Trump's inaugural address, MSNBC and ABC pundits and hosts slammed the newly sworn-in president's speech for its militant and dark anti-Semitic overtones. Now, this should come as no surprise. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow emotionally proclaimed Trump's America First slogan has very dark echoes in American history. There was an America First committee that formed in this country. Hundreds of thousands of people in this country, some of the richest businessmen in the country who were part of it. They were formed to keep us out of World War II. They were infiltrated by the Nazis. Many of them are anti-Semitic, part of why they weren't alarmed by Hitler's rise in Germany. See, there you go. You know, you throw the H word around so much, it doesn't mean shite anymore. You could compare you could compare a child that's selling lemonade on the corner block and call that act Hitlerian. Because I'm sure you realize that in many cities and municipalities, if you don't pay alms to that particular municipality, you can't even have a lemonade stand on your corner anymore. Over on ABC, journalist Terry Moran echoed Maddow's comment, saying Trump's speech reminded him of the 1930s. It carries with it overtones from the 1930s, when an anti-Semitic movement was saying, we don't want to get involved in Europe's war. It's the Jews' fault in Germany. There you go. It's the Jews. Chris Matthews weighed in from Fox News Insider. The headline, Chris Matthews, Trump's inaugural address, wait for it, had a Hitlerian background to it. MSNBC's Chris Matthews reacted to President Trump's inaugural address by likening its America First theme to Adolf Hitler's platform. Matthews said the speech had a Hitlerian background to it. When he said today, America First, it was not just the racial, I shouldn't say racial, the Hitlerian background to it. But it was the message that I kept thinking. So at the end of Inauguration Day, Friday, January 20th, the Democrats had confirmed only 2 of Trump's cabinet members, Mattis for Secretary of Defense and Kelly as Secretary of Homeland Security. On that same day, however, under Obama, 7 cabinet appointees were confirmed, and the Republicans didn't interfere, 7-2. So, as far as I'm concerned, it seems pretty obvious to me that the Democrats intend to be underminers and sabotagers. And then little Chucky Schumer already stated that he will obstruct any Trump SCOTUS nominee. And exiting Labor Secretary Tom Perez said, Democrats need to, this is a direct quote, hit him, meaning Trump, between the eyes with a 2x4. That's the peaceful and tolerant acceptance of the party of the left. The gloves are off. There is no honeymoon expressed or implied. It is going to be a bare-knuckled brawl from here on out. That's just the way it's going to go. I have to say that as they were leaving, however, Barack and Michelle Obama, they did have class during the transition and the proceedings, at least publicly. What was said behind the scenes, we may never know. And Trump was gracious to them as well as Hillary Clinton. He shook their hands quite a number of times. Here's the deal about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, in fact, one of the world's largest leading ciphers. He speaks in a populist fashion and offered an inaugural speech that, could have been, it almost could have been made by Bernie Sanders. And yet he appoints a cabinet comprised of persons that I consider them to be much more conservative than he is. So, just like if you've been around for a while, go back, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember a man by the name of Ross Perot? And he was a corporatist out of Texas, a computer guy, had a lot of money, and he ran for president as well. So I observed during the campaign of Ross Perot kind of how I thought Donald Trump would fare in D.C. Both of those guys are used to operating in an environment where their word is absolutely inviolate. It's iron. And their edicts, period. Again, that's what I say, that's what you're going to do. So, I know that there's going to be a particular issue. And I'm sure Donald Trump has found that out already. There's going to be obstruction. The obstruction is already here. People call Donald Trump a populist. I tend to look at him as a pragmatist. He's obviously going to do some things with which I won't agree. I'm an adult. I've seen all of this stuff. Everything is cyclical in one way or another. And I submit, though, However, the bottom line for me is this. He's not Hillary Clinton, and he's not Bernie Sanders. Let me remind you, however, before I change topic a little bit, because we're going to talk about some lies in a second. Imagine that. Lies from the press. You know, you talk about Barack Hussein's legacy. His crowning achievement, Obamacare, has been removed with which he said he could do things by executive fiat with a pen and a phone. With a pen and a phone, the first day. Basically, Donald Trump has removed Obamacare, and it's beginning to be deconstructed. That was his major legacy. Here's some other points that are part of his legacy that you won't find the American media maggots illustrating. He had the lowest labor participation rate since the 1970s. Just about 95 million Americans were out of the labor force. By the way, as a reminder, the U.S. population right now is 319 million, according to the last census. He was head of basically the worst economic recovery since the 1940s, the lowest American home ownership rate in 51 years, the lowest home ownership rate for blacks in America, 11 million more Americans were living on food stamps, 43 million Americans living in poverty. 1 in 5 families are without someone in the workforce. 1 in 6 men ages 18 to 34 are either incarcerated or out of the labor force. And there's more debt under Obama than all of the other presidents combined. Now, I said we're going to talk about lies. The very first day, now today's Tuesday, there were some lies that occurred over the weekend. And they came from CNN. And a major issue is being made of this fake news. But we're all adults here at the saloon. We're all adults on this bus, and I would suspect that the bulk of us can suss out when we hear something that's false, and we kind of know when something is correct. But CNN, from the very get-go, stuck its foot in it right off the bat with a tweet. CNN sent a tweet out that, quote, Nancy Sinatra is not happy because Trump used her father's song in the inauguration. And that's true. I watched the inauguration at the ball. There was a particular individual singing My Way. Yes, that's a Sinatra song. So Nancy Sinatra replied with her tweet. It can't get any more succinct than this. That's not true. I never said that. Why do you lie, CNN? Then, at the time, and this became a massive bone of contention later that was better dropped. Anyway, CNN came out with the article that comparing Donald Trump and Barack Obama's inaugural crowd sizes. And so since then, there have been any number of photographs put up, progressive photographs, videos, etc., about the size of the crowds. And that became an issue. CNN, it's becoming the equivalent, the American media maggot equivalent of Hillary Rodham Clinton. She couldn't open her mouth without confirming her serial liar status. Honest journalism is dead. I thought at one time it's moribund. It's primarily dead. Yes, there are going to be some exceptions. There are going to be some journalists that still are interested in truth. They are vastly, far outweighed by the people that have a bias and they've got an agenda. And they'll do anything that they possibly can to carry out the agenda. Well, hey, I have a great idea. Let's have the Republicans weigh in, right? Let's not stop there. So here's a tweet that Bill Kristol sent out right after the speech. Quote, I'll be unembarrassed, old-fashioned here. It is profoundly depressing and vulgar to hear an American president proclaim America first. Are you kidding me? Bill Kristol finds it depressing and vulgar to hear a president say the words, America first? Actively advocating for your country now, Bill Kristol is anathema to those who claim to be Republicans? Until December of last year, Bill Kristol was the editor-in-chief. You may not know, but he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine called The Weekly Standard. And I actually subscribed to that at one point. It gets into the minutia of the GOP and the Republicans, not so much conservative. And it was a particular magazine that was actually started by William F. Buckley. So the deal is on Bill Kristol, he was a never-Trumper from the very beginning. So, as a matter of fact, let's throw in this little tidbit. Bill Kristol is the guy that ended up convincing Evan McMullin, do you remember him, who threw his hat into the ring for president as an independent, and he was in Utah? Bill Kristol, the never-Trumper, is the guy that got Evan McMullin to run. Then he's the guy that also sent the tweet out that said, America first, to say it is vulgar. Now, you would kind of expect this, but Kurt Eichenwald came out and said in a tweet, now that conservative PC Patrol got their radical Islamic terrorism out of the mouth president, they can be smug. He said snug, but he meant smug. They can be smug as ISIS uses the video to recruit. Kurt Eichenwald, you blithering arsehole. ISIS doesn't need Bill Kristol. ISIS doesn't need Donald Trump to get its skirts in an uproar against Western civilization. Anyone making that argument is completely specious. There is no reasoning behind that. That's an insane, ridiculous argument. The only motivation that ISIS ever needed was that you're an infidel, you exist in the world, Western countries exist, and, that, Kurt, someday you'll learn to spell. Then there was another one. A person named by the name of Caitlin Moran said in a tweet, in a world with a terrifyingly uncertain future, there's one thing that's certain. That's the stupidest inauguration speech ever given. Well, it gets better. I'm sure you've already heard about this. Because then the mature, the loving, understanding, tolerant, and sensitive leftists weigh in again. Canadian leftist Ashley Sanity, with a C on the front, the C is silent, she felt compelled to assemble a whole bunch of photographs of Barron Trump to emphasize her point in a tweet. So the deal with her is he's a Trump kid, and so he makes great fodder for insult and ridicule. Her tweet was, maybe Barron is just a closeted Democrat. That or the kid has some serious resting bitch face. What do you think would have happened had someone said anything like that about the Obama's children? Or any children prior to that, in an era of social media? Oh, wait, it gets better. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop with that. Not at all. I'll come back right after this and give you just a wonderful tweet. This is disgusting. We'll be back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Cap was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America. One diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the Bloviating Zeppelin.
Thank you very much, and welcome back. Welcome back to my Berserk Bobcat Saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze isn't, unfortunately. You know, I can see trying to figure out exactly how you're going to time things is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I told you that I was going to get to a whole host of things here. This is the last half hour of the show. It seems like it just absolutely sloshed by in a ridiculously jet-like fashion. I hope to get some more things in here. We were talking about some of the lies that were occurring. And this one actually had some results to it. Like I said, it gets better because there's nothing finer for a leftist than accusing a 10-year-old Barron Trump, the son of Donald Trump, of being, well, listen to the tweet. This is from Katie Rich, who it turns out works for NBC on Saturday Night Live. Right, you guessed it. This is her tweet. Barron will be this country's first homeschool shooter. Well, this time the compassionate, understanding, tolerant and sensitive leftist Katie Rich believes that libeling Donald Trump's 10-year-old son is just wonderful, just splendid, because, after all, he's Donald Trump's son. Fair game. No problem. It's staggering. It really is staggering. Ashley, Katie, this is a question for you. Does saying that, writing that about a 10-year-old child, does it make you feel empowered? Like you're big women? By taking shots at a 10-year-old. How big are you? Not really. By the way, important safety note from me to you. She got removed. She got suspended from NBC. So, that was the first day. And like I always say, but wait, there's more. So, CNN, that very first day of Donald Trump's inauguration, they lied to the public. And then the tweets began. The tweet storms began from the leftists. And, of course, the riots were occurring. The anarchists were having a wonderful field day. Oh, and by the way, note to the leftists who got arrested, all 200 plus of you. They're being charged with felonies. Those felonies under which they are being charged could result in actual prison sentences with a maximum exposure of 10 years. Great decisions to make. Excellent, excellent. Then, from Breitbart.com, fake news on the actual first day of Trump in office. Spicer, this is great. I wonder if I have time to play this. I think I do. So Sean Spicer holds a press conference. You may or may not have heard it. And it's about the Martin Luther King bust story. And what occurred is that a Time reporter is in the Oval Office and sends out a tweet before even looking around all the way to make sure that it isn't a lying tweet, and says he believes the Martin Luther King bust has been removed from the Oval Office. They sent that out because they desperately want that to be true. They want Donald Trump to be so overtly racist that he couldn't even wait one frigging day to exhibit his true colors. So, let's, I think we can do this. Let's listen and see what White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer has to say.
I am not as nasty as racism, fraud.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's hear from Ashley Judd first.
Sexual assault, transphobia, white supremacy, misogyny.
Good evening. Thank you guys for coming. I know our first official press briefing is going to be on Monday, but I wanted to give you a few updates on the president's activities. But before I get to the news of the day, I think I'd like to discuss a little bit of the coverage of the past 24 hours. Yesterday, at a time when our nation and the world was watching the peaceful transition of power, and as the president said, the transition and the balance of power from Washington to the citizens of the United States, some members of the media were engaged in deliberately false reporting. For all the talk about the proper use of Twitter, two instances yesterday stand out. One was a particularly egregious example in which a reporter falsely tweeted out that the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. had been removed from the Oval Office. After it was pointed out that this was just plain wrong, the reporter casually reported and tweeted out and tried to claim that a Secret Service agent must have just been standing in front of it. This was irresponsible and reckless. Secondly, photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. This was the first time in our nation's history that floor coverings have been used to protect the grass in the mall. That had the effect of highlighting any areas where people were not standing, while in years past, the grass eliminated this visual. This was also the first time that fencing and magnetometers went as far back on the wall, preventing hundreds of thousands of people from being able to access the mall as quickly as they had in inaugurations past. Inaccurate numbers involving crowd size were also tweeted. No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out.
Stop. That's actually very true. I looked that up. The National Park Service used to, back in the 70s and the 80s, try to give its best estimates as to how many people would show up at a particular service, a protest, an inaugural, etc., and they began to realize that they were being under fire from both sides, and they decided to get out of the numbers business.
By the way, this applies to any attempts to try to count the number of protesters today in the same fashion. We do know a few things, so let's go through the facts. We know that from the platform where the president was sworn in to 4th Street holds about 250,000 people. From 4th Street to the media tent is about another 220,000. And from the media tent to the Washington Monument, another 250,000 people. All of this space was full when the president took the oath of office. We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong. The president was also at the Central, as you know, the president was at the Central Intelligence Agency today and greeted by a raucous overflow crowd of some 400-plus CIA employees. There were over 1,000 requests to attend, prompting the president to note that he'll have to come back to greet the rest. The employees were ecstatic that he's the new commander-in-chief, and he delivered them a powerful and important message. He told them he has their back, and they were grateful for that. They gave him a 5-minute standing ovation at the end in a display of their patriotism and their enthusiasm for his presidency. I'd also note that it's a shame that the CIA didn't have a CIA director to be with him today when he visited, because the Democrats have chosen, Senate Democrats are stalling the nomination of Mike Pompeo and playing politics with national security.
By the way, Mike Pompeo did in fact get approved, so we do have a CIA director now. But that was true. I happened to listen to that, and there was applause as Trump was speaking. But here's the deal. John Brennan, who was the CIA director under James Clapper, who's the DNI, James Clapper is a lying sack of shite. I can't say enough bad things about him. And I'm sure that he directed John Brennan to be as obstructionist as he possibly could. Both of those arseholes happen to completely politicize the Central Intelligence Agency during the Obama regime. I'm sure they received numerous phone calls again and again about what to do and what intelligence is going to be released. Because here's the deal. Ladies and gentlemen, the CIA agents out in the field collect information. The information, which is called take, is then brought back to Langley for analysis. After its analysis, it's then shipped to the various political entities that use that information in which to craft their policies and the decisions. When Obama decided that there were certain directions that he was going to go, it was told, my understanding, that to John Brennan and to Clapper, that their information was only a certain amount of information was going to be revealed. All the rest of it was going to be concealed. So my umbrage is not with the individuals that are out in the field, the Indians. It's with the chiefs. James Clapper needs to get the hell out. John Brennan needs to get the hell out.
That's what you guys should be writing and covering. That this, instead of sowing division about tweets and false narratives, the president is committed to unifying our country, and that was the focus of his inaugural address. This kind of dishonesty in the media, the challenging that bringing about our nation together is making it more difficult. There's been a lot of talk in the media about the responsibility to hold Donald Trump accountable. And I'm here to tell you that it goes two ways.
Sean Spicer's a little jacked up here, eh, what?
We're going to hold the press accountable as well. The American people deserve better, and as long as he serves as the messenger for this incredible movement, he will take his message directly to the American people, where his focus will always be. And with that, a few other updates from the day. The president had a constructive conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada about strengthening the relationship between our two nations. They also discussed setting up additional meetings in the days to come, which we will follow up on. He also spoke to Prime Minister Peña Nieto of Mexico and talked about a visit on trade, immigration, and security that will occur on the 31st. The president will welcome his first foreign leader this Thursday when the United Kingdom's Theresa May will come to Washington on Friday.
And that's later on this week. Sean Spicer is jacked up. He's running about 210 over 190 right now, which is my normal blood pressure, by the way. And for good reason. The Trump regime, conservatives, have been fighting the American media maggots for years. And it's getting to the point where people are starting not to believe them at all. When you enter into this fake news realm, expect not to be believed.
Friday. On tomorrow, the president will oversee his assistants to the president being sworn in. He will then, the staff will then have an ethics briefing and be a briefing on the proper use and handling of classified information. Further updates as far as what he will do. Oh, and then in the evening, he will have a reception for law enforcement and first responders that helped support the inauguration. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I will see you on Monday.
John, Women's March.
How about you, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer in the briefing room with several statements, but not responding to any questions from reporters.
Imagine that, not responding to questions from reporters. Do you think so? All right, I think I have... I was going to go into another cut. I may have time for it. I may not. I'm not quite sure yet. About people that are running for the DNC chair. It's so beyond the pale. I have to tell you, Obama's last official lie. The NationalReview.com had a great article that said Obama's final whopper as president. So because he's a serial liar, he can't go out. It hurts him to not make a major lie at least once a day. So the National Review wrote, he claimed that other countries don't have voter ID laws, though many do. President Obama is known for telling some whoppers. You know, like, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. That's maybe the most infamous. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that he told the final one as president right before he left the office. At his final press conference, Obama promised that he would continue to fight voter ID laws and other measures designed to improve voting integrity. The U.S. is, quote, the only country among advanced democracies that makes it harder to vote. Harder to vote. Really? It traces directly back to Jim Crow and the legacy of slavery, and it becomes sort of acceptable to restrict the franchise. This whole notion of election voting fraud, this is something that has constantly been disproved. This is fake news. Okay, all right, stop right there. I have, for example, on my blog, example after example after example, most of them in video, of blatant examples of voter fraud. And I haven't even referenced all the videos by James O'Keefe from Project Veritas. If you haven't seen any of the voter fraud videos from Project Veritas, you absolutely must. You know, when you talk about voter fraud, you're talking about California, for gosh sakes. You know, Donald Trump said that that millions of people voted illegally. I say it's not entirely impossible. I suspect that it wasn't impossible for Hillary Clinton to have won the popular vote simply because of the existence of California. Further, I suspect a massive amount of votes for Hillary resulted from illegals having access to and taking advantage of voting in California. The article goes on. But Obama's first statement that the U.S. is unique in trying to enforce ballot integrity is demonstrably false. All industrialized democracies, and most that are not, require voters to prove their identity before voting. Britain was a holdout, but last month it announced that persistent examples of voter fraud are going to require officials to see passports or other documentation from voters in areas prone to corruption. Well, of course, as we all know, Black Americans are incapable of grabbing ID for voting. They just don't have it within them. And all the caucasoids, all the leftist caucasoids on the planet must support their inability to think, walk, and chew gum at the same time. We must apologize for these poor people, so therefore they're exempt. We're not going to require ID, although you need it for everything else that you must do in life. So there was an interesting video that I discovered where people were interviewed, and it goes something like this.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote.
Did you hear where he was? Berkeley, California, the hotbed of leftist insanity.
Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
Right.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works. A lot of people have smartphones.
Did you hear that? Black people don't have the knowledge of how it works. Really?
We might not have data. For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of...
Blacks are unaware, they're uninformed.
Like black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, like you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the like African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask
Right. Florida's populated by black felons.
Black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? Do you carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so like we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. Like, that's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, an ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy canvas?
I know, right?
That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that. It's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is on you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Did you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid could figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually
unlimited.
Unlimited data.
Mm-hmm. I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the
very,
word I hear
very
a lot.
ignorant.
Ignorant.
No very, shit. Very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, but you're judging them because they're black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, "Can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Are you
love showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, "Can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are"? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you had to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. How absolutely nutso is that? Well, I think it's just about time to go. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time. This is my first official act, so to speak, my first official show, and unfortunately it has come to an end. Oh, my goodness gracious, has it ever been fast?
Monsieur! Es une
We'll meet again. Don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Ballroom on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at BZepp and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music at the beginning is by Possessed Tranquility at ReverbNation.com.
That as you saw me go, I was singing this song.
Tune in to the Sackheads radio show tomorrow night, the best in late night talk radio on Wednesday from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern, featuring Sean and Clint and yours truly.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.